Okay, so we got a pretty exciting one today. I've been kind of looking forward to this episode for a long time. I have like a habit of like, I don't too often make these without like consent, especially with like more like private people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like less like huge known people, more like small time folks. But this here is Dragonheart is his YouTube handle.
Do you have consent from him?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, it was like I would say like 2.5 years ago or 2 years somewhere in there. I sent him a message and was like, "Hey, I'd like to feature you on an episode of Remy Reacts," and he hasn't been on his Instagram in a very long time. He hasn't made a YouTube video probably as long, and so he just popped on recently. And the picture that's up here now is a current picture of this guy. I'll get into why I'm featuring him here in a minute, but he just checked his Instagram and he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to." And he's like, "You can use any of my pictures." And he and I have we've talked semi-frequently over the last 7 or 8 years, whatever it's been. And for me, this is like, people ask me who my inspirations in the body mod world are, and Dragonheart here has been one of mine. I don't think that anyone in particular has inspired my body mods altogether. There's been a few people.
No, but I remember him being a big inspiration and a lot of help to you when you were stretching certain things.
Well, like, not so much like, here's what you do. Just kind of like
you could see that it was possible because he was doing it. You were seeing what he was doing, and I feel like you bounced ideas.
I think I asked a few things, but I mean, overall, you kind of find your own way. But just the fact that I've seen him with his, at one time, 30 millimeter septum piercing. I had a very big septum forever, like for always. I've always had a big septum piercing, but it wasn't like in the landscape of the giants. You know what I mean? Like, he at the time he had the biggest septum that I knew of. There is one other person who has a bigger septum piercing than him, but we're not going to talk about that today.
No.
I guess the Guinness Book of World Records, again, I'm going to take a shit on this. The Guinness Book of World Records has the biggest recorded septum at like 25 millimeters or something. I don't know who holds the record right now, but that is so far from the world record.
How big is yours?
22.
And his maximum?
He had it at 30 millimeters.
Okay. And I also, because you've watched videos, because he used to do little vlogs like you did.
Yeah.
I recall that he was having trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Keeping it. And I remember you watching those videos and having kind of aha moments, because you were having trouble sometimes with swelling and sizing too.
Yeah, and not in my septum, but
other stuff.
And other stuff. Like, my septum was a pretty easy stretch.
But I think that basically what I'm trying to illustrate is how important it is for people like you, like him, to put videos out there, because I think there's some camaraderie that you guys need to have together to see what's normal quote unquote for these giant holes.
Yeah, well, there isn't a whole lot of information, no pun intended, on any of this kind of stuff. Like, I found when I was stretching my labret piercing, there was almost no information anywhere for that. There's much less than I would like still, and I found that infuriating, because this is a very reclusive subculture.
There's a lot of gatekeeping, I feel, that goes on in the piercing body mod area. Yeah,
it's pretty. And when you do penetrate that subculture, a lot of those people are elitist douchebags too.
I'm not going to name any names, but I've definitely gone to some piercing studios where the piercers have ripped me a new one for the piercings I had in at the time. Yeah. Because of what they were made out of, and not even nicely. Like, educate me nicely.
No, it's you would think that these people would want to be friendly, considering that the idea is that we're discriminated against because of our appearances. But,
right. Not hey, do you know that black metal in your nose is like seeping toxins into it?
Yeah.
Nicely. It was like really Yeah. Anyways.
But by the way, that's not even a huge, like, whatever.
I know, but it was a thing.
But anyway, when I found Dragonheart, I really liked his approach to communicating, and he was just very chill. And I was already doing my thing at that time, but I really was like, this is how I would want to do this. Like, it's no editing, like front-facing camera. The worst lighting of all time.
Oh yeah, his videos were like pretty
dull, terrible audio, and just him in a room talking.
But they were real.
And like I was like, why don't we do this? And like also down to earth, like and communicating with the people who are watching.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like
I remember watching videos with you as well. I really liked his human approach.
Yeah,
like he's a normal guy.
Very normal dude, but has some cool little things.
Some
like he's
really
got
cool things.
Some huge forward helix piercings, I believe. Big conches. He had the biggest conches that I knew of before I started this. I've seen slightly bigger conches than mine and his. I believe he's got his conches at 16 and 17 millimeters now, which mine are 16 and 18.
Pretty big.
I struggled with the right over and over. The right one. It kept trying to. It's not a blowout, but it kind of feels like it's a blowout. It looks a little bit like a blowout. It kept, like the skin was bowing out. It was not wanting to stretch. I rocked that back and forth forever. I had it up to a 19. I can still get the 19 in, but it doesn't work. Like there's a limit to my anatomy there.
And I think it's okay to understand that you have limits sometimes with these things. And your right ear gives you trouble all the time.
Yeah, my right ear is a pain. But my left helix and my right helix, for example, stretched completely differently. But he didn't really start seemingly having problems with his septum, I don't think, because he had a fairly big nose until I think like 26, 27 millimeters. And it started like really fucking slowing down. And
wasn't he having a problem actually getting it through his nostril for a while?
Yep, the nostrils were a complication. So like you almost have to stretch your nostrils out.
Yeah, I remember watching a video where he was mentioning that getting it's all well enough if you have the biggest hole in there, but you have to be able to get that piercing up into your nostril. And from what I understand, it's more comfortable to have a solid piece rather than a squishy silicone piece.
Yeah, those are terrible. They irritate the hell out of the inside of your nose, and they bunch up. And
right, because everybody's probably like, oh, just squish the silicone and put it in there. I don't think it's that simple. It would be great
if that would be comfortable, but it really irritates your like the tissue in your nose after a while. I had mine custom made when I got to my retirement size. It was like, for one thing, I can't have wide jewelry. I can't get them in my nostrils.
Yeah.
And for another thing, it has to be just the right size, or there's drag on one or other side, and that irritates your nose too. Like there's a lot of weird shit that I learned stretching piercings that you would never know otherwise.
Oh, I think you learned it with like all your piercings as well. Who did your custom septum? Do you remember which
Stone
one?
Wolf or South Shore Adornments. I got stuff
South
from
Shore
both
did that one? Yeah.
And part of this is like Dragonheart was sharing information about where he was getting his stuff made.
I remember.
So that's where I got tipped off.
Again, this is why I think these sorts of I think Dragonheart is so important because I remember a time where you and this was really early on. You were like, man, I really want to get things custom. I don't know where to get them custom. Someone has to be able to build these to my size. And then I think
that's where I found it.
You found this, right? And it's crazy, the gatekeeping, because you should be able to find.
You'd think so.
How to like it's so obscure, because I remember we were like, oh yeah, like how do you get custom sized pieces? So he was like really important to help you with that.
Yeah, and super down to earth, and like I said, like this guy went a little bit viral at one point because he had a video of him putting his entire index finger through his nose. Yeah.
You can do that too, right?
I can't put my entire finger through it.
Oh, he went all the way to the base.
So he goes to the base. I can do like this one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
That's as far as I can get. He can get all the way down to his knuckle.
We can get my whole index finger in your nose.
Wow,
for
you
sure.
got tiny fingers.
Yeah.
So.
But that's actually pretty. He's got He's and sorry, he's got really big nostrils as well.
Yeah.
But you said that it's likely that he stretched them as he went as well, probably,
Well,
right?
I mean, they probably got the tissue probably gets stretched out when you're having to put shit in and out, right?
Because particularly in this picture, you can really see.
Well, his nose is now a helmet for his septum piercing.
Yeah, it's really bowed out.
But, like, that's-
yours doesn't bow that much, but he's got like a big piece in there.
If you look at pictures of me from before, you can see that my nose is a little bit bigger. Like, just at the bottom, it has a bit of a round. But actually, interestingly enough, I think it suits my face better with the rounder finish.
Personally, and I don't want to just talk about you the whole time, but like personally, I think the shape of your nose is nicer now that you have that piece in there.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Because it does make it rounder here.
But I mean, you've never known me without a big septum either. So I always had a big one.
You've always had a stretched septum, and it's always been fairly large, but it hasn't always been apparent.
No.
Because when we met, it didn't change the shape of your nose as much as the bigger sizes have.
Well, then it will start to change your nose at different sizes depending on the size of your nose. But
yeah, you have a large nose generally anyways.
like I said, his is not the biggest I know of, but the biggest I knew of at the time, and I think it's the biggest I've seen that still remains in some way tasteful looking. He also has nearly 3-inch lobes.
I was going to ask, these are 3-inch, right?
I think his lobes, their biggest were around 3 inches, or no, around like 90 millimeters actually. And
really
now
big.
I think they're sitting somewhere around 75 millimeters, so like 3-ish. What is 26 millimeters? So just below 3 inches.
So I think that's probably a more comfortable,
Yeah, this is
workable day-to-day size for him.
in some way livable. It's not like Hippo ear or some of these other guys that have.
Well, I think part of the problem is that getting. I recall he had like a manual labor, like delivery type job.
Yeah, I believe so.
So I think this is probably more comfortable if he still has that job for that sort of work. I'm betting.
What my hope is that he'll start doing YouTube vlogs again, because I would like to keep up with him.
Yeah.
I've talked about Dragonheart on certain Remy Reacts before. This is the guy who I've mentioned that had no tattoos anywhere and blacked out his nipples.
Yeah,
his
I think
first
that's amazing.
tattoo experience is he got forearm black work and he blacked out his nipples.
Because why not?
Because why not?
Right?
Like, that's some balls right there.
Well,
so.
it's a spot that everybody's afraid to do, and he probably just wanted the experience.
Well, I think it's also like when you do heavy body mods and like big piercings, you're a different level.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not bragging, but like that stuff is way worse than
I'm
tattoos.
sure. I'm sure. I don't have any heavy mods. I love tattoos, but I'm too big of a baby to go and do.
It's a different level of dedication too, because like when you stretch something like this,
Oh, yeah.
you're feeling that pain for sometimes up to a month,
Oh yeah.
right? And it's a battle to keep it in.
I mean, like I have my ears stretched, and they've
Yep.
been stretched for.
Lobes are kind of the baby of that. Like,
But
they're the easiest one.
Even like my septum, putting one size bigger in there is absolutely excruciating. And I'm sure everybody out there with a septum has had this experience where you go and you buy a ring and it's like a gauge bigger than what you have in there, and you go and throw that bigger gauge in, and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe how much this
The
hurts.
worst of that is the denting. When you're starting to erode your cartilage,
Oh, I can't even imagine.
that's wherever that happens, and it happens for different people at different sizes. Mine was like, I don't know, somewhere between 00 and at the next size, whatever it was, 13 or 14 millimeters. I had some real complications.
Great.
But after that, it was fine.
So let's talk a little bit more about the nipple tattoos. Were you in communication at the time? Do you know anything about has he spoken about like his experience with the nipple tattoos? I'm curious.
he made vlogs about that.
Yeah.
But I didn't speak to him about it, but I thought it was a pretty cool thing
It's
to
bold.
do. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, this is what I would probably do, like if I was starting later in life, I would probably be like more.
Go straight
Let's
to
go
the
straight for the hard stuff.
right. Well, I mean, and yeah, just to get your forearms just blacked out.
Yep.
Yeah,
He did quite a bit more black work too, but I don't think he's done anything since.
Pretty. It's pretty tribal. I think blackout in its way. Ooh,
Yep.
this is cool.
Yeah, he's got a cool negative space design. Like I said, I don't think he's done anything since these tattoos here. I think this was kind of where he left off at. But yeah.
This is the kind of guy, and maybe he's like you and won't do it, but he's the kind of guy that I could see being like exactly how he is, but getting his eyes done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he will, but yeah, I could see something like that.
Right? Just for the experience, because I think, I mean, it's still pretty unsafe as far as I understand, but
it's just the long-term things really. But I don't know. I've got a lot of love for this guy, and I was happy to hear from him again. And I hope that he'll get back into making YouTube videos because, like, it doesn't like for me. The more content creators out there putting out kind of down-to-earth information without a lot of editing and a lot of fucking bullshitting around, that's just good for everyone in the community. Because there's, I'm not the most likable person either.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't like listening to me. Maybe you'd rather listen to him. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly.
And I just prefer there to be more people talking without incentives and without like sponsorships and fucking bullshit and people paying them to say certain things or them chasing views or whatever the fuck.
The whole thing, again, why I think this is so important that more people share their stories, is I always remember that when we first had gotten together, you had a...
I had cross-threaded septum.
Yeah, your septum had gotten cross-threaded. You had gotten it out the one time.
Yeah.
And I'll find the picture so you can hopefully put it up. But you put it back in and it re-cross-threaded and you couldn't get it out. And we had only found one other person on the internet who mentioned that it happened to them. But they didn't say
I've
what
made a video
happened.
about that, by the way. But the only reason why I really was inspired to get that thing out, to be honest, was because I wanted to go bigger.
Yeah, I remember that. And I
had to cut it out with a jeweler's saw
Yeah, we're
over
lucky.
the course of many months.
I remember
It's one of the craziest
when you
things I
started
ever
cutting
did.
out, you're like, Sarah, just sit there and hack at it. And I couldn't because it was
Yeah, I
cutting
got
your
right
nose.
up in there with the jeweler's
Yeah.
saw. There's blood and yeah, it was a nasty time. Every
There's a
time.
really good picture.
Took several tries.
But there was seriously no information out there, and even to know that's a possibility. Don't put a threaded piece of jewelry in your nose.
Don't put anything with threading in your septum.
Like just
Consider
to know
yourself
that.
warned.
Yeah.